Yishmael, I'd like to thank the wonderful sponsors of the Shir this evening, Malki and Dr. David Daniel, sponsoring in honor of Refuah Shalema, the Schus Refuah Shalema, for his Chash of a father, Rabbi Cheskem and Hilda, Eibishter should send Refuah and Nefesh Refuah Aguf B'Sol Shachol Yisrael, have a carve we should only hear and share Mesiras Tovos. Be'ez Hashem Yisbach. I want to mention as well the yard site Saras Lata Surchak Saras Lata Bas Zeiva La Shalom Heilig and Hashem Shemizacha to a tremendous continuous aliyah and Neshama and Gan Einon Shamayla Mechoy Lachoy. We turn with Siyata D'Shmaya towards the end of this week's Parshas Vayera, and of course, one of the highlights of the Parsha, none other than the last Nisayin of Avram Avinu, at least according to Rashi. Based on the Perkei Elazar, again, different Shitas in the Rishonim on the Mishnah, in Perkei Avos, Perkei Mishnah Gimel, B'Yasor, Nisyonos, Nesasa, Avram Avinu, exactly how to make the Cheshbon. Different Shitas, Rashi, Rabbi Yonah doesn't have Akeidas Yitzchak as the last test, something that the many Sfarim discuss. He has it as test number 9, test number 10, Aliba Rabbi Yonah, is the following week's Parsha Mesiras, sorry, Menu, and finding her an appropriate burial plot. Hakoponim, we know most of the Rishonim, and based on Perkei Elazar, hold the last test is the Nisayin of Akeidas Yitzchak. Vayachar dvar ma'ila v'alhum nisas Avram, vayomer lav Avram, vayomer hineni. This is the 7th Aliyah Percha Beis Posek Aleph, the Nisayin of the Akeidah. Asks Rav Asher Weiss, this is from his Agdama to his Minchas Hashem Masech Shabbos, aboard as well in the Gevaldige Sefer Kamotzei Sholo Rav. And Rav Asher Weiss says that when we turn our attention to the ensuing pasuk, we get a glimpse of what the Nisayin was all about. Vayomar kachnas pinchas yechincha shahavtas Yitzchak v'lech l'chol eretz ha'Moriah v'chulei, and you'll be makrivim there as an olah on one of the mountains. Then I will go ahead and share with you when you arrive. In the end of the day, asks Rav Asher Weiss, what really was the Godol HaNisayin? And we know a lot of ink has been spilled throughout the generations. How to be Magdir? What was the Tokef HaNisayin? What was really so difficult about the Nisayin of Akeidas Yitzchak, in contrast to all the very difficult and heart-rendering at times, and the Nisyonos that preceded it. So many different Mefarshim. Comes Rav Asher Weiss and he says as follows. We have an Arichas, the Nefesh HaChaim talks about this idea in Shar Beis of his Nefesh HaChaim when he discusses Tefillah. It's how he describes the Gemara Meseches Brachos, Taflam and Beis, that Chasidim HaRishonim, HaYeshon, Shachas, L'bnei HaTefillah, Shachas B'Tefillah, Shachas Dachat Tefillah. What were they doing in that 1 hour before davening? So we mentioned Rav, not the Freund, who says, you know what they were doing? They were davening. They were davening that when it comes to the actual davening, they should have the right kavanah. So they were davening for kavanah when it comes to the actual tefillah. But explains Rav Chaim Eloshen not like that. Chaim Eloshen says that 1 hour of preparation was an avoda in his pashtus hagashmi. Dainu, they worked on themselves diligently for the course of an hour to divorce themselves of all mundane and materialistic pursuits. In order to be mizdabik legamri to the Borei Olam, they underwent a thorough process of removing layer after layer of their connection, their yachas to the Olam HaGashmi. They were mispashet es atzman from all mundane materialistic matters. They got rid of that, and Meilot's Kilu, they went up and were mizdabik legamri with the Borei Olam. His pashtus HaGashmi, says Rav Asher Weiss, in the end of the day, we know the Kohen Gadol, the Zohar says, how did he go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? It says, no Adam will enter into the Holy of Holies. How did he go in to do the Avodah Yom Kippur? Writes the Zohar, he didn't go in as an Adam, he went as a Malach. That means what? He got to a Madrega. Similarly, where what? He was mispashedes atzmo from the Olam HaChomer, the Olam of the Tzad HaFizi, the Tzad HaGashmi, and he went in as a Ruchniistic mensch. He went in Bebechinas a Malach. That was the Madrega that he attained by the Avodah Yom Kippur. If Rav Chaim Eloshen describes the Chasidim HaRishonim in such a manner, if the Zohar describes the Kohen Gadol B'Shas the Avodah Yom Kippur in such a manner, then Kal V'chomer Miben Benosha Kal V'chomer Avram Avinu, and we could add the Gemara and Dorim. We know he was the Kohen Gadol. He got the Kuna Gedola from Shem. Someone he can make himself like a Malach. So ask Rav Asher Weiss, what really was the godless of the Nisayin? He could just work on himself and say, I'm going to be mispashit for the Olam HaChomer. I'll uplift and elevate myself. I'll, figuratively speaking, take myself out of this world. And once I'm out of this world, I'll be like a Malach Hashem Tzavakos. What's the big deal? I'll do the Nisayin like any Malach will do the Nisayin. I'll be Manatik. I'll sever the bond, Kila, between me and my son. And I'll go and I'll do the Nisayan, just like any malach would do it. What's the big deal of the test? Right? So Moshe Weiss, what do we see from the Medrash? The Medrash Rabbi makes it very clear that all throughout the course of Akeidas Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu was crying. He was morid demos. He was shedding tears all throughout. We mentioned the famous Vart of Elimir Blochin that tells Rosh Hashivas that you can have more than one emotion simultaneously. In the end of the day, Rav Elimir Bloch even says on the Pasuk, Achnas Binchas Yechidcha, so Rashi says, Asher Hafta, he loves Yishmael as well. I don't know, Rashi told me earlier when he was Yotzi the Tarbaz Ra, it says that he was Sony him, he hated him. It says that's not a stira. He hated him for his actions and he loved him because he was a son. You can have more than one emotion simultaneously. It's Rav Elimir Bloch L'shita, so because B'shas Akeidas, he writes, as do other tells the Rosh Hashivas, so there's a Gordon that it wasn't a stira. He loved the Eibishter, and at the same time he was crying that so he was a father. Now having to shech the son. This explains Moshe Weiss, Ein Chanami. If Hashem didn't give us Pasuk Beis, and then Avraham Avinu would have said, big deal, it's very easy to pass this test. I'll make myself, I'll turn on my malachdik nature. I'll go in, kilu like a Kohen Gadol, during the Avodah and Yom Kippur, I'll go and divorce myself in the Olam HaChomer, the Olam HaGashmi. Then it wouldn't be such a Godel HaNisayin. What really made it such a unique Nisayin, the fact that the Eibishter says, Kachna, es bincha, I don't want you to go ahead and go in as a malach. I want you to take your son. I want you to go as a father taking your son. Yechidcha, and your only son. Asher Hafta, the one you love, Chiddushim even says that extra ava, ayadei, the Eibishter uttering that word, it saturated, inundated Avram with an indescribable, unfathomable darga of ava, klapi, your son, to make the Nisayan even greater. But it explains to Moshe Weiss, this was the Nisayan. Avram, I know you can make yourself like a malach. I know you could be like a malach on the Yom Kippur, the avodah of a Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol. I don't want you to do that. I want you to go in as a regular father, as a regular person, part of this world, somebody who loves his son. And that's the Medrash Rabbi telling us clearly that he was shedding tears, crying all throughout. The Avram Avinu as the Malach, he wouldn't shed tears, but the Avram is the Tati of Yitzchak, as the Abba of Yitzchak, taking his Ben Yochid, Asher Haftas Yitzchak. I want you to go in as a father. Beautiful raya, right? So Moshe Weiss. Now we understand later on in Perachal Beis Pasuk Zayin. Vayomar Yitzchak Avram Ava Vayomar Avi Vayomar Hineni B'nei. What's going on in the pasuk? It doesn't say what Yitzchak said. It doesn't say what Avram Avinu said. He says, you know what the kavanah was? The kavanah was that Yitzchak was an estapek. How in the world are we doing the Ma'aseh Akeidas? Maybe it's not going to be such a big nisayon for me also. Maybe I can also get to the darga. He was the Yom HaTfilah. I'll be mispashet from the Gashmi. I'll be like Malachi Hashares, and I won't have any big deal. Or maybe, and Avram Avinu, maybe you're doing the same thing. Mela, that's why Yitzchak says to Avram, Avi, are you coming in as not to Avi? Or maybe you're like a Malach Elokim. Hey, Shalom Avram, Hineni B'nei. I'm coming in, that was the tzivoy. Hashem gave me a tzivoy. Hineni B'nei, Avicha ani, V'hencha B'nei Yechidi Ahuvi. How does Hashem want us to do this mitzvah? I am going in as your father, you're going in as my son. And that was Megadol, the Tokef, the Godol Hanisayan, that it's a father shechting his son, no malach taking in all the malach, no magical, the worldly inyonim here. That was the Golden Nisayan, and that's why he was shedding tears all throughout. Okay, Gevalde Gevort. Let's go back to the pasuk. Vayomer kachnas bincha es yechidcha. So Rashi picks up on what exactly is going on here. What's es bincha? He says, as Bincha, Avram Avinu responds, Amar lo shnei bonim yesh li. I have two sons. Amar lo es yechidcha. Amar lo ze yechlim. Ze yechlim. This is the one to Hagar. This is the one unique to Sarah. Amar lo shahafta. Amar lo shnei ani oev. I love them both. And then finally, Amar lo es Yitzchak. I wanted to tell him. He didn't want to go in and confuse him. Lo ratzol avro pito. And then tizach taito love. Or kedei lechavi love. So it's just either way. Hashem yisbarach had a cheshbon, different shitas in the Midrash, and what the cheshbon was. But clearly Hashem says, Kachnas Bincha, Avram Avinu responded, I love them both. They're both my children. They're both together ben Yochid, and they are both loved. Half the dika in you. So what's pshat that it's dafka over here in the context of Akeidas Yitzchak that we see that Avram Avinu viewed both his children equally as Banim, both children equally as a Ben Yochid, and both children equally as an Ohev, which means not Stam, the way Veli Meir Bloch presented it, that to reconcile it with the earlier Rashi, that when Yishmael was Yotzi at the time of Saul, it says that he hated him. No, he also loved him. In the end of the day, Avram Avinu responds, Asher Hafta, I don't know which son it is. That means what? I love Yitzchak and I love Yishmael. The context of Akeidas Yitzchak comes in the heels of this Indian. What's it all about? Perhaps the idea is based on the famous Mesiras of the dialogue between Yitzchak and Yishmael. Yishmael says, Yitzchak, I'm greater than you are. You got a bris milah on day number 8. Big deal. How conscious, how aware were you when the bris milah was performed? Kila willy-nilly, right? On day number 8, he says, I was 13 years old at the close of Parshas Lech Lecha. I had a sacrifice. What's Yitzchak's response? You're talking about sacrificing. You displayed a sacrifice when it came to Ever Echad, when it came to one Ever. He says, me, Akeidas Yitzchak, I was willing to give up everything. So what do you see? In the end of the day, Yitzchak understood, V'nekudas hachiluk lebasof was going to be a point of distinguishing between him on the one hand and Yishmael on the other. I'm willing to sacrifice everything for my God, and you only displayed a sacrifice l'gabe Ever Echad. I'm giving up mamish everything. What's going on here? Perhaps the idea is as follows. So Feiner, a piece he discusses a number of places, Pachar Yitzchak and Yom Kippur and elsewhere. If you want to understand the distinction between two things, you have to highlight all the parallels that the two items have, and then you have the Nekudas HaChiluk, which is margish and brings to the forefront what exactly the point of distinction is between the two items. On the Avodah of Yom Kippur, you have two seirim, and state in pasuk what? They got to be the same height, the same age, the same color, the same everything. And then you can have a seir echal Hashem, seir echal Azazel. What's going to be the point of being machalik beinehem? One's going to go kulal Hashem, the other one's going to go and be destroyed. So what do you see? I only understand and fully appreciate the chiluk beinehem when they're the same size, the same height, the same age, the same color, and in the end of the day, this one goes la Hashem, this one goes la Azazel. To understand the chiluk between Yitzchak on the one hand and Yishmael on the other, the ikar chiluk comes that what? Yitzchak is someone who is known forever as the Amidat Tefillah. Yishmael, thus called Yishmael, he also has Tefillah. See, Yishmael has Tefillah, and Yitzchak has Tefillah. So what exactly is the difference? The difference, l'chayr, is what? Is that Yitzchak in his Tefillah is a Mesiras Nefesh l'gamri. The same way, when we come into Tefillah, what is the highlight of the Tefillah service? The Amidah. And what's the Amidah all about? Writes the Seder Olam, writes the Maral Nesivos Olam Nesef Avodah, and Perek Zayin, writes Rav Shimon Schwab in Rav Schwab on prayer, page 411. Quoting Rasham Shon Full Hirsch, what's in of an Amida? I come before Hashem, Dolafni Miyata Omed, Amida, and I'm avato my anoichius legamri to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I come in, Betur, Hachno Gemur Muchletes, I take away all my ritzonos, no Yadayim, no Raglayim, I stand like a Malach Hashem, and I give up everything to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yishmael is the Koach HaTfilah, Yitzchak is the Koach HaTfilah, he is after all the Amanat Tfilah, but Yitzchak is Moser Nefesh Legamri. Where was that displayed? In Akeidas Yitzchak. He thus became an Ola Tamima, the Meshach Chochma Kaidu. You're not allowed to take him out of Eretz Yisrael. He doesn't just daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gives up everything. I give up myself. What is his tefillah? Avram Avinu is the tefillah Shachar, corresponding to the Shachar. Yitzchak is the Tefillah Mincha, which should have been Sarayim. Yaakov is, after all, Arvis, Ma'ariv, which is a conjugation of the Erev. So Shachar is Shachar, Ma'ariv, Arvis, Erev. Yitzchak should be Tzarayim. Call it something Tzarayim. What is it called Mincha? Why? Because Pshuto Kimashma, he was a Mincha. He didn't stand daven a Tefillah that corresponded to a specific, a designated time in the day. He was Pshuto Kimashma, a Mincha Be'etzam Atzmiyuso. He offered himself. That is the Nekudas HaChidish in the Tefillah of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is Akeidas Yitzchak. What's Akeidah? Tie your hands and feet together. When do we do that? Say, oh, Maharal, Rav Schwab, based on Rav Hirsch. That is the Amidah. Amidah is, I figuratively stand, I tie my hands together, I tie my feet together, Brachos, Daviram, and Beis. Based on the Pasuk in Yecheskel, Allah Zayin, Baraglayim, Regel, Yeshara, Amavato, my Anochius, my Atzmis, I give that up to the Eibishter. So in the end of the day, Yishmael has Tefillah, Yitzchak has Tefillah. Lefini has Taiti. So what's the Ikar Chilik B'neihem? Yishmael, yeah, he davens to God. He does things for his God. Yitzchak is a Bidul Atzmo Legamri, a Mesiras Nefesh, and that was displayed, obviously, when was he a Mincha? By Akeidas Yitzchak. So how do I understand and appreciate that's the Chiluk? Eibishter already set the stage for us. Eibishter says to Avraham Avinu, He got two sons, and they both sacrificed a little bit. Yitzchak had a bris milah on day number 8, and Yishmael only had a shtickle Mesiras Nefesh. He had a bris milah on day 13. But now I want you to know what? I want you to take bincha yechidcha shahavta. I want you to take your son. Which son do I want you to take? Bincha, they're both your sons. Yechidcha, they're both ben yochids. Asher hafta, you love them both. They're mamish the same. They had an active Mesiras Nefesh when it came to milah. They're both yibonim. They're both yibonim mechidim. They're both yibonim mechidim hanehovim who Allah. And you know the chilik beineim, the Feiner the ikar nakuda that's mafred beineim, the dorei doros, is the idea of Yitzchak. What Akeidas Yitzchak shows that his tefillah, his koach tefillah, is coming in the context of his batlus gemura umuchlata say hachna gemura vatsuma ad maod. I'm giving you all of me in my tefillah, and that is Yitzchak. B'meila in the future, who's going to be around? Yishmael was a mitzachek. He's laughing and letting go right here in this world, but Yitzchak is going to be the one who's going to be around in the future. And the only one who's going to be around in the future, Kibi Yitzchak, Yikari L'chazera, your hemshech is only going to come from him. And when does he get the promise of conquering Eretz Yisrael v'chulei? That's all based on the end of Parashat Vayera, Akeidas Yitzchak. So Mela comes out very geschmack. Eibishter set the tone. Like Rav Asher Weiss, he's making him a human being. And you got two sons, and you have two unique sons, and you got two sons that you love. And they're mamish the same. So in the end of the day, why keep Yitzchak Yikar Chazara? Why is Yitzchak the hemshech of Avram and not Yishmael? What is the matzah that has Yishmael next to Eliezer? The two Na'ar of Ito. He's got his two Na'arim. Eliezer is cursed. Yishmael is grouped together, no unique identity. He's grouped together with Eliezer on the side, while Yitzchak is the Ola Tamima. So Eibishter sets the stage. You should view them as they're all the same. This is the Maisa that's going to take your two unique beloved sons and be mafred beineim l'dorei doros. You know what it comes down to? The ikar nakuda sachila is best illustrated only in a context when you walk into Akeidas Yitzchak. The two sons seem to be similar. What's going to be the kuda that'll be machalik beineim l'dorei doros? This one does a shtickle Mesiras Nefesh. This one does little things here and there, but this one, when he goes into his tefillah, he is a mincha pshuto kemashmo. His batel is gemura mochletas. That's Akeidas Yitzchak, and it'll be known as his Akeidah, his tying himself together. He is the Amida. He'll be the koach tefillah. He'll be the hemshech of Avram Avinu. While Yishmael gets grouped with Eliezer, Yitzchak is the one to go and be the hemshech of Klal Yisrael. A wonderful night and a great rest of the week ahead.